Hi everyone, this is Michael with Left Hook Boxing, the new boxing channel that I set up recently just to kind of provide a different, maybe like a different look in boxing analysis. I've been a boxing fan for a very long time, decades to be honest with you. I go back to the fight with Sugar Ray Leonard and Thomas Hearns. Actually, the first one, September 1981. Yeah, I was a lot. I was a kid then, early teens, I guess. But that was, I guess, one of my main, let's say, my main introductions to the sport of boxing when I really started falling in love with it. But I really wanted to talk about the Saul Canelo and Terence Crawford fight. I'm probably just giving a post-fight analysis of what I saw in my eyes. So let's get right to it. This was a fight between Saul Canelo, the reigning super middleweight champion, and Terence Crawford, who was coming up three weight divisions to challenge Canelo. Definitely a tall order, um, even for someone as talented as Crawford. But again, a lot of fight experts figured that Crawford could get the job done. I did, but I thought that a lot of people were sleeping on Canelo's deceptive boxing skills. I thought Canelo was and still is um, a pretty good boxer with high ring IQ. Canelo's earned that IQ over the years. He started boxing at 15, and so he's just has so much experience in that ring, which is why he's so relaxed. Um, but but I will say this: uh, when people were saying that Canelo has regressed, I wasn't really sold on that. But I will say this: Canelo no longer throws combinations. I don't think it's that he can't do it. I just think he's just gotten into the mentality that he doesn't have to do it, and it's become a habit, and that showed glaringly in this fight. He was not throwing combinations. If you look at Canelo's first and even especially his second fight with Golovkin, he was throwing multiple combos, and that helped him win that second fight. With this fight with Canelo, it's almost as if he couldn't pull the trigger, or he was reluctant to pull the trigger. I also thought that he was giving Crawford way too much respect as well, which I thought was again unlike Canelo. Canelo usually fights like he's got a chip on his shoulder. You watch a lot of his, last maybe I'd say 3, 4 opponents. I'll pick out two especially. Caleb Plant just before he fought him. I know they made friends afterwards. Edward Belanga, and of course Golovkin. He had a major chip on his shoulder with Golovkin, mostly because he was being accused of drug cheating, um, and probably rightfully so, being that he failed a drug test sample. But going back to this fight, right? My opinion was that Canelo would be able to really push Crawford to the ropes a lot better than he actually did during the fight, and let go with those combinations. Another thing is I was not seeing a jab. There was no jab from Canelo. Canelo wasn't jabbing. He was just walking in with those single shots. I'm actually, I don't know whether I'm more upset at Canelo or more upset with his trainer Eddie Reynoso, because it seems as if they did not prepare for the kind of fighter that Crawford is. I feel like they trained. He was obviously in shape, but it didn't seem like technically they got themselves together for the caliber of fighter that Crawford is, and that sort of that surprised me. I was a bit surprised at the lack of, let's say, the lack of strategy. Um, but who knows? Maybe they thought that Canelo didn't have to do anything else. Crawford, on the other hand, fought an excellent fight. I mean, this dude is as savvy in the boxing game as they are. I will put him on par with Mayweather. I'm not yet ready to say that he exceeds Mayweather, but I put him up there with Mayweather in terms of ring intelligence. Especially, when you watch him up close, when you watch him operate up close, he's able to hold Canelo off. You watch him, he's got that hand up like this, and then he's got this hand ready to deliver those quick uppercuts. And then watch him also when when they're in close as well. Watch him slightly push Canelo away, showing his strength as well, and stabbing Canelo with that straight right jab to the solar plexus. I mean, this is like vintage stuff that you only see with great fighters. And he does this on the fly. That's one thing about this guy. He's very cool, calm, calculated in there. And what separates him from Mayweather is, I mean, Mayweather used to do this. He stopped doing this as he kind of got older, became the more money Mayweather. But he's willing to stand in that pocket and deliver some hurt. And that's something that Mayweather stopped doing after a while. And if you notice in this fight with Canelo, when he stayed in there and let fly those rapid combinations, I'm talking about Crawford. Canelo, you could see, was really thinking about giving it a go. I thought that was when Canelo would really kick in, and that's when a real fight would break out. But it seemed as if Canelo at that point in time mentally just said, you know what, maybe I'm not going to win these rallies and these infighting, these combinations. And then Canelo would, once or twice you saw him like release, 1-2, a 1-2, 1-2. I saw one or two good things he did. It's a 1-2. I think it was a left hook and a right uppercut. And I like that, but I thought he should have done a lot more. At some point, I didn't really see the urgency in Canelo. You know, I actually think one way Canelo could have fought Crawford, in my personal opinion, maybe it wouldn't have worked, is do a Marvin Hagler. Tommy Hearns is moving up in weight from super welterweight to middleweight, right? And Hagler knew that he was the middleweight. He was the guy who's been at 160 for a long time. And it's as if it's as if in that fight with Hagler Hearns, Hagler said, how dare you try and come into my space, my territory, to try to take my titles. And he went at Hearns from round one. I don't know, talking about that Hagler Hearns fight, and I sometimes I like to go back. Um, I don't know how that fight would have fared if Hagler would have done that well if he had fought Hearns for 12, 15 rounds. Because, Hearns could have been on his bike using his jab, occasionally throwing that, big right hand. And Hearns had a pretty good left hook as well. But again, maybe that's the way Canelo should have fought this fight. I thought, he got nothing to lose, but he was trying to box with a master boxer. Canelo is a good boxer, very good boxer, good ring IQ, but he's not great. And that's the difference. Everyone's talked about Canelo's slow feet. I think people probably talk about that a little bit too much. You know why? Yes, he's not that quick on his feet. He's not the fast twitch, athletic guy feet wise, but he's able to get himself into position. And that's the most important thing for a fighter. Getting yourself into position where you can deliver the punches that you need to let go. And Canelo's able to do that. So I don't really look at this whole slow feet thing as a disadvantage. I see him able to use that to position himself well with most of his opponents. Obviously, that didn't work well with Crawford because Crawford was doing the whole lateral movement, and Crawford wasn't running. If you compare the Lara fight that Canelo fought with Lara, you see that yes, Lara would sometimes stand and punch, but most times he was on his bike. Crawford wasn't. Crawford was in that pocket. He would move out a bit, move left, move right, move Canelo around a little bit, but he'd stand there and he was punching. Another thing that we don't give Crawford enough credit for, this guy looks like he could have been a pretty good 15-round fighter. He's got a good gas tank. Uh, Stamina does not seem to be an issue. I've never seen him really huffing and puffing and looking really, really tired. This guy looks like he's built, like a real long distance athlete runner. He can go the distance, man. It's either that or he just knows how to sort of manage and conserve his energy because I don't see him tiring. He looks like the kind of guy who could have easily gone 15 rounds. I'm talking about old school fighters back in the day. The Sugar Ray Leonards, the Marvin Haglers, going 15 rounds and that's when they're getting their second wind. Crawford looks like that kind of guy. Um, so you know, having in summary, it was a great performance by Crawford. It was a good performance by Canelo. I'm not gonna, talking about those scores, I'll say this. I thought Crawford won the fight. Excuse me. I would not have been disappointed with a majority decision, to be honest with you, because I thought Canelo did some pretty decent things, especially maybe the first 6 rounds, the first 6 or 7 rounds. I thought Canelo was competing. He did not get blown away, but he got outfought and outgamed by clearly a more superior fighter. And it's Canelo's just unfortunate that in his time, and Canelo's in the Hall of Famer easily. This is one of the greatest fighters to come out of Mexico, but he just happens to be in a generation where he meets up with Floyd Mayweather and Terence Crawford. And these may end up being two of the greatest fighters of all time. I mean, GOATs. And Canelo just happens to run into these guys or run into. They also happen to be lighter weights than he is, but they still come up, fight him, outbox him, and beat him. And so it's just bad luck, Canelo. What can I say? But all props to Canelo. He's a great fighter. He's been a great ambassador for the sport. I think people don't really talk about it that much. How good he's been for the sport. This is not a guy who's had too many scandals. He's become a family man, and there's a part of me that just wants him to walk away, go away, enjoy your family, enjoy your money, and live a long and healthy life. I know he signed this 4-fight deal with His Excellency Turkey. I don't know who else he's going to fight or who else he needs to fight. That's my thing. Um, and I don't know that those fights will necessarily turn out good for him because it does now seem disinterest in boxing at the highest level. So I would prefer to see him retire. As for Crawford, I don't know. He's got a lot of options in front of him. They both have this contract with His Excellency Turkey, and I don't know what Crawford's going to do. Again, he's another one that I think this would have been the apex of his career, and he could have walked away. My guess is they're going to bring him back and feed him some guy who he would be almost be like an exhibition fight for him. But again, if it was me, I would reconsider and I would say, you know what? I've done everything I need to do. I'm gonna walk away. All right, last thing before I leave. And by the way, guys, I know camera positioning. It's gonna get better. Excuse me, guys. It's definitely gonna get better. Okay, it's a new channel. We're tweaking a few things, getting things going. Uh, RIP, rest in peace to Ricky Hatton, the hitman from the United Kingdom. This is a guy that fought with everything. And he was a good fighter. When Ricky threw those left hooks to the body, he was throwing them with mean intentions, and a lot of times they would slow you down. He was just a force in the ring when he was really on. Yeah, again, he's one of those guys who happened to meet two all-time greats during his career, and it's unfortunate, but that's the thing. Floyd Mayweather schooled him when they fought, and of course Manny Pacquiao stopped it. So there you have that. All right, lastly, before we wrap up today, is this Keith Thurman against Sebastian Fundora. How's that going to work out? The consensus is that, or rather, the conventional wisdom is that Fundora will overwhelm Keith, being that he's older, take him out, and it's just going to be a payday for Keith. I don't see it that way. I don't see it that way. Same things were being said when Keith Thurman was supposed to fight Zoo. Um, and people said Zoo would take care of Thurman. Again, I felt differently then. I feel like Thurman's a wild card in the sense that, yeah, he's been out of the ring for a while. He does not fight that often. Probably fought twice in like 6, 7 years since he beat Pacquiao. I'm sorry, since Pacquiao beat him. But Keith can fight, man. Remember, Keith was the guy. Keith was the guy fighting everybody. So Keith can fight. He can still box. He's still got good legs. He doesn't have too much wear and tear on his body, and he's not the massive puncher that he was when he started out in the welterweight. But he can still hit with authority. So I'm looking at that fight. I think that fight to me is 50-50. It could go either way. We know that Fundora has been knocked out cold before. He's a great fighter. He uses his height, his length. He's got a good gas tank. But I don't think this is a blowout for him. I think this is one fight where if Keith Thurman fights the way that we know that he can, I think it could be a bad night for Sebastian Fundora. But that's the intrigue of boxing. That's why boxing is the most interesting sport on the planet, at least to me. All right. All right, guys. Appreciate your time, and I hope you enjoy this post-fight analysis. Please click on subscribe if you do. Like I said, we are improving on the podcast. This is my first podcast on this channel, and so you're gonna see things get a lot better. All right. Thank you so much. Take care, and let's keep loving boxing. Again, thanks to Turkey, His Excellency Turkey, for bringing boxing back. I hope we see more of these Netflix shows. This was great. There was no buffering. The streaming was absolutely excellent, and I'm just hoping that this continues.